Now, first of all, the point that I want to highlight, the beginning of life. Beginning of life starts with the fertilization of the ovum. Okay. Now, regarding the fertilization of the ovum, what do you mean by fertilization? Now, you have passed physiology. So, as because this is rather elementary physiology, you should have certain knowledge and idea about it. What is fertilization? When the male sperm meets the ovum and there is fusion of the pronucleus of both the male sperm and the female ovum, that process together is called fertilization. Now, there are certain interesting facts about this fertilization that you must know. For example, suppose a sperm enters the vaginal canal. Now, due to intercourse, most of the seminal pool, that is the bulk of the semen, where are they deposited? Primarily mostly in the posterior vaginal fornix, because normally that is the most dependent part when a man and a woman is in the coital activity. So, bulk or majority of the spermatozoa or seminal pool, you can say, is deposited in the posterior vaginal fornix. Now, if I ask you another question, suppose the sperm enters the vagina and fertilization occurs where? What is the site of fertilization? Yes? Very good. Ampulla of the fallopian tube. Now, if the sperm enters, say for example at this point of time, say 10 o'clock in the morning, there is a coital activity and the sperm sperm meets the ovum. Will the fertilization occur at this point of time? Yes or no? Because sperm enters the vagina and in the vagina it further propagates, goes to the fallopian tube and the ovum is there in the fallopian tube. So, literally and ideally, there should be no bar. But actually, this does not happen. Why? Sperm must undergo certain physiological changes before it can fertilize the ovum. I repeat again, the sperm must undergo certain changes while in the female genital tract before it has the capacity to fertilize the ovum. And a minimum period, say for example, how much is it? On average 7 hours or plus minus something like that, during which the sperm changes. There are certain changes in the sperm and then it can penetrate the ovum and fertilize the ovum. And this, again another terminology comes out, this process is called capacitation. Capacitation. So, you got the answer? When the sperm is there and the ovum is also there, it cannot be an immediate fertilization because there is a preconditioning condition, that is capacitation. And what happens in case of capacitation? The sperm head, it has got a cap called, you all have studied this in physiology, I suppose, that is called acrosomal cap. Now this acrosomal cap is dissolved by acrosin and certain amount of other enzymes like trypsin. So when the acrosomal cap falls down, then the sperm becomes eligible or rather requirement for fertilizing the ovum. Okay. Now regarding the phases of fertilization, there are certain phases. I am describing all these things in a very simplistic manner because if I make them complicated, going to the details of each procedure, I think it will be cumbersome for you, difficult to remember also, and to some extent is not that much required also. So I will be highlighting those conditions which are definitely required for not only for your examination purpose but also overall grasp of the subject. Phases of fertilization, we have three phases: phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. The phase 1 is penetration of the corona radiata. You know the corona radiata surrounding the ovum, that is called corona radiata. And then phase 2, penetration of the zona pellucida. Immediately outside the ovum, there is a translucent layer that is called zona pellucida. And number 3, the phase, fusion of the oocyte and sperm and their cell membrane. Now the second part, that is penetration of the zona pellucida, is most important. Actually, the process of fertilization occurs when the sperm penetrates and crosses the zona pellucida. Now, ordinarily, there is another very interesting phenomenon. Suppose there are so many sperms there around the ovum, isn't it? One sperm crosses or enters the zona pellucida. Can another sperm enter and fertilize? Yes or no? Yes, answer is no. Say it loudly and boldly. No. Why? Because it is against the law of nature. Because there is both the sperm and the ovum genetically considered, they are called haploid, isn't it? That is half of the total chromosomes, 22X or 22Y. So once another sperm enters, then what will happen? It will be a triploidy, isn't it? 23 plus 23 plus 23, 69. And this sort of condition occurs in one condition, a pathological condition, you will read it later on, that is called hydatidform mole or molar pregnancy. Hydatidform mole or molar pregnancy. So, nature always has set certain rules which is beyond the possibility of violation. Even we, the mankind, our scientists and our biologists, etc., we do so many experiments, but somehow there are some axiomatic things in nature which cannot be changed. Now, not only this one sperm penetrating and second sperm can never enter it, that is axiomatic. Again, another thing, just for your, it is not very important for your examination, just for your curiosity and knowledge, that this zona pellucida is species specific. That means, say, ovary of an animal and sperm of another animal, it is not possible to penetrate the ovum by that sperm of that species. And glorious examples are there. You know, in the biological experiments, inter-cross breeding, sometimes say a lion with a tiger or a tigress with a lion, like that. But peculiarity and funny thing about it is, once they produce an offspring, that offspring becomes sterile. That means, if there is a cross between a lion and tiger, sometimes they are called liger, sometimes they are called tigon, like that. They are sterile, they cannot further propagate. That is the nature's law of certain restrictions and limitations. So then phase 2, this penetration of the zona pellucida is extremely important. And phase 3, fusion of the oocyte and the sperm, when the sperm loses a tail part, only the head enters and marginally part of the neck. Rest of the part is not inside the ovum, where the male and the free pronuclei they fuse with each other and the division of cells starts. And regarding the genesis of the genders, you know that primarily the gender depends on the type of sperm involved, because the women genetic profile is 22x, isn't it? So it will always be, on the female side, it will always be 22x. But in case of male partner, it is 22x or 22y. When it is 22y, sometimes we call it a male sperm, and 22x, we call it a female sperm. So if a female sperm penetrates the ovum, result will be তোমরাও একটু বলবে তো female, জোরে বলো. So result will be female, 22x plus 22x, 44xx. And if it is penetrated by or fertilized by a male sperm, 22y, it will be a male gender, that means 44xy. Now, once the division of cells occurs, first 2 weeks we call it a fertilized ovum, sometimes also called a zygote. So first 2 weeks. And then from the 3rd week to 8th week, we call it a fertilized embryo. Okay. So from 3rd week to 8th week, we call it an embryo, and from 9 week onwards until the delivery, we call it fetus. Clear? Now at about 16 cell stage, we call it a morula. Now this morula has got an inner cell mass and trophoblast. ছবিটা একটু now why I am giving a picture, so that you can have some conception of this early embryogenesis. This particular part, it is called the inner cell mass, and actually this is the part from where the embryo develops. Okay, this is the part from where the embryo actually develops, and this part, now similar type of cells, they are called trophoblastic cells. Okay, so this inner cell mass ultimately later on will be called embryoblast, and the outer layer, that is called trophoblast or trophoblastic cells. And these trophoblast or trophoblastic cells ultimately go on to develop the full-blown placenta. Now the zona pellucida not only gets penetrated, the zona pellucida ultimately disappears. Why? Reason behind is, as long as the zona pellucida is there, it is not possible for the embryoblast to implant into the maternal uterine cavity. So for the implantation process, the zona pellucida disappears, and then ultimately the embryoblast attaches itself into the endometrial cavity. ফার্টিলাইজেশন কোন টাইমে হয়? মোটামুটি থার্ড ডে। ওকে, ফ্রম 6th day onwards, এগুলো কিন্তু আমি বলছি তার কারণ আছে। কারণ হচ্ছে যে তোমাদের এখন মেডিকেল কারিকুলাম সব জায়গাতেই ফর ইয়োর any competitive exam, you will have to sit for the exam which is multiple choice question type, isn't it? Now, in the multiple choice question type, you will find questions are set from material which are definite and concrete without any ambiguity. কোনো একটা সাবজেক্টের উপর যদি অ্যাম্বিগুয়াস থাকে, সেই সাবজেক্ট বা টপিকস নিয়ে কিন্তু মাল্টিপল চয়েস কোশ্চেন হয় না। যেমন এই যে এটা বললাম আমি, এই ডেফ এগুলো মুখস্থ করা আরবিট্রারিলি নয়। দে উইল আস্ক ইউ কোয়েশ্চেন্স লাইক দ্যাট। সে implantation process starts at more or less 5 to 6 day period. An implantation process is complete by 9th day onwards. You follow my point? So fertilization starts on the 3rd day usually, and the site of fertilization again at the ampulla, and this after fertilization the embryo or at this stage sometimes it is called the blastocyst. Blastocyst has got a free blastocystic period. Free blastocystic period means it floats. Fertilization has already occurred, but it floats in the tubal lumen, in the tubal fluid secreted by the tubal epithelium, and by floating it enters the uterine cavity through the cornua, and then starts an entanglement of the uterine cavity. That is, it starts the process of implantation, and this implantation procedure is completed roughly by about 9th day. ঠিক আছে? So once the implantation process is complete, that means the embryo now is fixed in a particular part of the uterine cavity. What is the common site of implantation? Implantation common site কোথায়? পরীক্ষা জিজ্ঞেস করলে এটা বলতে হবে, আনসার হচ্ছে upper part of the uterus nearer to the fundus. Upper part of the uterus nearer to the fundus, either in the anterior wall or the posterior wall, rarely lateral wall. That is the complete answer. So, implantation occurs at the upper part of the uterine cavity nearer to fundus, either in the anterior wall or in the posterior wall, rarely in the lateral wall. বুঝে গেল? এখান থেকে তোমার এমসিকিউ কোশ্চেন চলে এলো। তো যদি দেখা যায় ফার্টিলাইজেশন অকার্স রেয়ারলি অন, তাহলে ল্যাটারাল ওয়াল হয়ে যাবে। কমনলি অন আইদার অ্যান্টিরিয়র অর পস্টেরিয়র ওয়াল, nearer to the fundus. Hello? Clear? Now let us come to another important part, that is the early pregnancy. You know, early pregnancy, there is a structure derived from the ovary which is called corpus luteum. Again, from your elementary knowledge of physiology, I think you know a little bit about the corpus luteum. What is corpus luteum? Yes, you are partly correct. Then only ruptured Graafian follicle. It is the ruptured Graafian follicle. You have completed 50%, it's all right. Another 50% you have not. Not exactly. That what fact you have said is all right, but when you want to label it as a corpus luteum, the ruptured Graafian follicle with effects of luteinization, with effects of luteinization. Follow my point. And this luteinization, why this luteinization occurs? Reason behind? This luteinization is actually under the influence of luteinizing hormone or LH. Now what happens? Normally, this corpus luteum has a fixed span of life, roughly about 12 to 14 days, or about roughly 2 weeks. But if pregnancy happens, then there is extra luteinization. That means luteinization continues. And this continuation of the luteinizing action is due to it is no longer under the influence of LH. It is due to HCG, human chorionic gonadotrophin. Because human chorionic gonadotrophin has some protein sequence, or rather amino acid sequence, nearer to the LH. So under the influence of HCG, this corpus luteum becomes the corpus luteum of pregnancy, and it is further prolonged up to almost 12 weeks or 3 months. After that, what happens? After 12 weeks or 3 months, definitive placenta has now been established. Definitive placenta has now been established, and this corpus luteum then is strengthened by the action of the placenta and the placental hormones. Now, after the implantation process is complete, what happens? Now, implantation actually, there may be 2 types of implantation. This is for your academic interest, not so important. Now, if this is the uterine cavity, when the blastocyst implants, there are finger-like projections. These finger-like projections are actually the basal part of the endometrium. So from that point of view, it is part of the maternal system. On the other hand, the superficial part that you are seeing, that is from the trophoblast. Okay. So if you are asked in the examination, what is the development of placenta or the source of development of placenta? Answer is, source of development of placenta is both from the maternal aspect as well as from the fetal aspect. Source of development of placenta is both from the maternal aspect and the fetal aspect. The fetal aspect, it is called chorionic frondosum. That is finger-like. That's why it's called frondosum. Chorionic frondosum. And the maternal aspect, it is also called decidua basalis. Decidua basalis. So, if you consider the development of placenta, theoretically, it has got 2 components, both the maternal component and the fetal component. The maternal component is decidua basalis, the fetal component is chorionic frondosum. Then we are coming to a little bit about that trophoblast. Now the trophoblast, actually, their main function is to secrete multiple hormones. Trophoblast secretes the sex steroids, both estrogen, progesterone, and human placental lactogen or HPL, also certain growth hormone like factors, etc., to maintain the pregnancy or to support the pregnancy. What is the clinical proof? Clinical proof is if the placenta is damaged, there are many ways or pathologies by which the placenta may be damaged. Damage number one, for example, the mother has got development of high blood pressure during pregnancy, which we call it preeclampsia. Preeclampsia. In this case, when the maternal vessels are affected due to the changes in the maternal vessels, the placenta also undergoes some damage. Some of the areas of placenta, they are non-functional, low blood supply or poor blood supply, and this poor blood supply means poor nutrition to the fetus. And ultimately it may end in two conditions, which is mostly dangerous for our clinical practice. One is intrauterine growth restriction or IUGR, and the other is intrauterine fetal death or IVFD. So that is a little bit about the placental functions. Then we are coming back to the next point, that is this trophoblast producing the villi, or call it chorionic villi. Again, there may be an MCQ question from this part. There are three types of villi seen: primary, secondary, tertiary. Primary, secondary, tertiary. What is the difference between all these things? আমি ছবি এঁকে দেখাচ্ছি। একটা ভিলায়ের দুটো সেল লেয়ার থাকে। এইটা হচ্ছে একটা সেল লেয়ার, এই লেয়ারটাকে বলা হয় ভিতরের লেয়ারটা সাইটোট্রোফোব্লাস্ট, ঠিক আছে। আর এর বাইরের লেয়ারটা কিরকম? বাইরের লেয়ারে কিন্তু সেলের কোনো আউটলাইন নেই, একটা ভিসকাস জেলির মতন, আর এখানে মাল্টিপল নিউক্লিয়াই। এটার নাম হচ্ছে কি? এক্স্যাক্টলি সিনসাইডিও trophoblast. Okay, so outside it is the syncytiotrophoblast, inside it is cytotrophoblast. তাহলে প্রাইমারি ভিলাই হচ্ছে যখন এইগুলো থাকছে না, ভিলাই আর তার মাঝখানে কিছু নেই। সেকেন্ডারি ভিলাই হচ্ছে যখন এই ভিলাইয়ের মাঝখানটাতে মেসেনকাইম হ্যাজ বিন দেয়ার, দিস আর মেসেনকাইম, এটা হয়ে গেল সেকেন্ডারি ভিলাই, মনে থাকবে। এইবার এর মধ্যে ব্লাড ভেসেল চলে এলো, কি হলো? ব্লাড ভেসেলস, ইয়েস, টারশিয়ারি ভিলাই। তাহলে মনে থাকবে প্রাইমারি ভিলাই মিনস only a layer of outside syncytiotrophoblast and inside cytotrophoblast. And when there is penetration of the mesenchymal elements or mesenchymal cells or mesenchymal tissue rather, we call it secondary villi. And when the fetal capillaries enter this mesenchyme, it becomes a tertiary villi. তাহলে এখান থেকে যদি কোনো এমসিকিউ কোশ্চেন করতে পারবে, বুঝতে পারবে, ক্লিয়ার? ওকে, now regarding a third week, the growing embryo develops three dermal layers. What are these three dermal layers? The ectoderm, the mesoderm and the endoderm. Now, in general, you'll have to know certain basic process of embryology or development. What is that? The ectodermal germ layer products. Sometimes you'll be asked in the examination. For example, if you are asked the mammary gland, it develops from which? তোমার অপশন দেওয়া থাকবে তিনটে mammary gland develops from এক নম্বর অপশন endoderm, 2 নম্বর অপশন ectoderm, 3 নম্বর অপশন mesoderm. Anybody? What is the answer? Very good. Absolutely correct. So, primarily, ectoderm mainly produces the nervous system, CNS and peripheral nervous system. So, if your MCQ question is like that the CNS develops from or the peripheral nervous system develops from, answer is ectoderm. Similarly, the development of the subcutaneous glands in the body and the development of the pituitary gland, that's a very nice thing, because pituitary gland is situated almost at the base of the brain. So to conceive a structure developing from ectoderm and getting place at the base of the brain is rather difficult. But that is the fact. So pituitary gland is also an ectodermal in origin. And some of the, for example, teeth, the enamel of the teeth, that is also from ectoderm. Why I am categorically providing you such informations? Because these are the basic informations that you must have if you want to solve the MCQ questions that will be facing from the subject of embryology or all these things. Okay? Clear on this point? Now let us come to the mesodermal cell layers. The mesodermal cell layers, initial part of the embryogenesis, they produce certain structures which are called sclerotomes. Possibly you have read it in your anatomy, sclerotome. And also, this mesodermal layer produces the tendons, the cartilages and the bones. The tendons, the cartilages and the bones. Also, it develops the muscles, segmental muscles. They are also called myotomes. So myotomes or segmental muscles, they are also produced from the mesoderm. And there is the dermatome, which actually forms mainly the dermis of the back. Then we are coming to another type of mesodermal structure in the early embryo. That is called intermediate cell mass or intermediate mesoderm. Intermediate cell mass or intermediate mesoderm, from which majority of the urogenital system is developed. That is kidney, ureter, bladder, etc. So urogenital system develops from the intermediate mesoderm. Another important thing, the endoderm or endodermal germ layers. What produces this endoderm germ layers? Actually produces the epithelial lining of the respiratory tract, the epithelial lining of the urinary bladder and urethra, epithelial lining of the tympanic cavity and auditory tube, and the parenchyma of thyroid, parathyroid, liver, pancreas. So you see, most of these glandular structures, the very easy and schematic picture of the development of the different glandular systems in our GI tract. Liver develops from there, pancreas develops from there, thyroid upper part, that develops from there. So all these are coming from this invagination of this primary endodermal structure, and from there is developed. Okay. So I am giving you the picture because if you remember this picture in mind, you will be able to answer most of the questions related to this development. Now, development of the placenta. I have already said the fetal part developed from the trophoblastic layers and the maternal component from uterine endometrium, basically decidua basalis. At full term, the anatomy of placenta, at full term, what is the weight of the placenta? Roughly around 450 grams. Roughly about 450 grams. And how many lobes or cotyledons are there? Roughly about 15 to 20 cotyledons. Now, I think the weight is a little bit more. It's better to say approximately 500 grams or plus minus. And what is the basic function of the placenta? What is the basic function of the placenta? Yes? Exchange of gases, okay, agreed. And so, the placenta facilitates the exchange of certain components like nutrients and gaseous exchange between the maternal and the fetal parts. Now, there are several types of placentation. That is also another MCQ question. The human placental system is called, কি নাম বলা হয় জানো? একদিকে কোরিয়েনিক টিস্যু আর একদিকে হচ্ছে ক্যাপিলারিস। একদিকে কোরিয়েনিক টিস্যু আর একদিকে ক্যাপিলারিস। তাহলে কি নাম হবে? হিমো ক্যাপিলারিসের ব্লাড আছে, এক্সচেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, তাহলে এটার নাম হচ্ছে হিমোকোরিয়াল, আর এদিকে কোরিয়েনিক টিস্যু। ঠিক আছে? তাহলে ফিটাল ক্যাপিলারির মধ্য দিয়ে যাচ্ছে, এইবার বাইরে ম্যাটারনাল সাইড থেকে অক্সিজেন আসছে, এসে থ্রু দ্য ফিটাল ক্যাপিলারিস গ্যাসিয়াস এক্সচেঞ্জ হয়ে ফিটাসে চলে যাচ্ছে। আবার রিভার্স ওয়েতে কি হচ্ছে কার্বন ডাইঅক্সাইডের ক্ষেত্রে, ফিটাল সিস্টেম থেকে ক্যাপিলারি থেকে বেরিয়ে এসে ম্যাটারনাল সিস্টেমে গিয়ে ম্যাটারনাল সাইনাসে গিয়ে ওপেন হচ্ছে। দ্যাটস ওয়াই ইট ইজ কল্ড হিমোকোরিয়াল। তাহলে ফাংশন অফ প্লাসেন্টার মধ্যে আর কি পড়বে? ডেফিনেটলি এক্সচেঞ্জ অফ গ্যাসেস, অক্সিজেন, কার্বন ডাইঅক্সাইড, and to some extent carbon monoxide also. Exchange of nutrients and electrolytes that occurs primarily in the placenta, and certain particular compounds being transported towards the fetal compartment. তাহলে ম্যাটারনাল কম্পার্টমেন্ট থেকে কিছু কিছু জিনিস they are transported to the fetal compartment for the growth and development of the fetus. কি সেগুলো? ফিটাস যে ডেভেলপ করবে তার জন্য তো কিছু নিউট্রিয়েন্টস দরকার। কি কি দরকার? ডিফারেন্ট অ্যামাইনো অ্যাসিডস। তাহলে অ্যামাইনো অ্যাসিড না হলে বিভিন্ন টিস্যু কি করে প্রলিফারেট করবে? তাহলে অ্যামাইনো অ্যাসিডস, ডেফিনেটলি কার্বোহাইড্রেটস ফর ক্যালোরিজ, and other than that, and of course the vitamins. These are also exchanged from the maternal side to the fetal side. Now, transmission of maternal antibodies, mainly of maternal immunoglobulin G, is transported from the mother to the fetus. Maternal IgG is transported from the mother to the fetus. Why is it so? Because as long as the fetus is inside the mother's womb, this maintains immunological protection of the fetus. তাহলে ম্যাটার্নাল যত রকম ইনফেকশন ম্যাটার্নাল আছে তার যেগুলো অ্যান্টিবডি তৈরি হয়েছিল সেগুলো কিন্তু দিস ব্লকিং অ্যান্টিবডিজ আর প্রডিউসড in the maternal system, transported to the fetal side, and it gives passive protection of the fetus against these infectious diseases. Now, a little bit about the amniotic fluid itself. Now, it's a clear fluid, almost like water, transparent, and produced by the amniotic cells, and also derived from the maternal tissues, maternal blood, etc. The amount of amniotic fluid, again an MCQ, at 30 ml, at 10 weeks it's 30 ml, and 450 ml at 20 weeks, and 800 to 1000 ml at term. এগুলো কিন্তু অনেক সময় এই কোশ্চেন মার্ক অ্যাজ এমসিকিউ আসে, সেই জন্য আমি স্পেসিফিক বলে দিচ্ছি এই কটা। আচ্ছা, আদার দ্যান the development of the fetus, what other functions are there for the amniotic fluid? Amniotic fluid টা কেন আছে কেন? একটা জল তো। So if you think the animal kingdom in the broader sense, they developed inside the water. If you go to the early genesis of life, we'll find primarily the development of life started in the ocean, on water. And that concept is still there in our body system. If you compare, so ocean e jokhon develop korche organisms, tara kintu ocean e ki hoy, jolta ki salty. There is outside, there is sodium chloride, much concentration. Similarly, in our body system also, we are having our organs bathed in extracellular fluid or ECF. And if you consider the structure and the biochemical conditions in the extracellular fluid, there also will find high level of sodium concentration but low level of potassium. Just like when the organisms developed in the ocean, similar picture is still there in our system. So, while this fetus develops, the function of the amniotic fluid is very, very vital and crucial. You must know. কেন থাকে amniotic fluidটা? যদি না থাকতো তাহলে কি হতো? না থাকলে কি হতো জানবার জন্য আমরা ক্লিনিক্যালি চলে যাব। যেমন যেই প্রেগন্যান্সিতে আমরা দেখবো amniotic fluid খুব কম আছে, এরকম প্রেগন্যান্সি তো হয়, অ্যাবনর্মাল প্রেগন্যান্সি, তাদের কি ইম্প্যাক্ট আউটকাম তাহলেই বুঝতে পারবো। amniotic fluid amount যদি কমে যায় তাহলে কি হয়, ডিফারেন্ট ফিটাল স্ট্রাকচারস আর নট সেপারেটেড ফ্রম ইচ আদার, হাতের সাথে পেটের এখানে বুকের এখানে লেগে আছে, অ্যান্ড দ্যাট উইল প্রডিউস অ্যাডহেসিভ লাইক, দ্যাট ইজ অ্যামনিওটিক ব্যান্ডসের মতন তৈরি হয়ে যায়, ঠিক আছে। অ্যান্ড ডিফর্মিটিস অফ ডেভেলপমেন্ট অফ দ্য ফিটাল সিস্টেম, পার্টিকুলারলি দ্য লিমসে দেখবে অনেক সময় আমরা দেখি কি এই যে ট্যালিপেসিকুইনো ভাইরাস, মানে পায়ের এটা বেঁকে রয়েছে, তার কারণ কি ওখানে অ্যামনিওটিক ফ্লুইড ছিল না, যা নর্মালি যে ফ্লোট করতো সেই মুভমেন্টটা আর সে করতে পারছে না। নট অনলি দ্যাট, আরেকটা কাজ অ্যামনিওটিক ফ্লুইড কি, আমরা যখন ফিটাস অবস্থায় ছিলাম we used to breathe amniotic fluid inside our lungs, and that is physiologically required for the proper development of the lungs. যদি না হতো কি হবে? Pulmonary hypoplasia, like that. Now, fetus swallows amniotic fluid and also fetus urinates. A part of the fetal urine is contributed to in the amniotic fluid. Now let us come to birth defect, the final part of today's lecture class. Now birth defects, we call it congenital malformations. These are caused by কেন হয়? Roughly environmental factors 15%, genetic factors 30%, and interaction of environment with the genetic susceptibility 55%, and minor anomalies that occur in about roughly, again it is an MCQ question, minor anomaly occurs in how much percentage of pregnancies? Roughly around 15%. This is minor, not major. That means very much compatible with life. Now, there is another question that is commonly asked, again MCQ. Infants with one minor anomaly have 3% chance of major anomaly. একটা ইনফ্যান্ট যার একটা মাইনর অ্যানোমালি আছে তার কিন্তু চান্স অফ মেজর অ্যানোমালি বেড়ে গেল, becomes 3%. এবার ইনফ্যান্ট with two minor anomalies with 10% chance of those major anomalies, and those with 3 minor anomalies, it increases further up to 20%. So, one minor anomaly, it is 3% chance major anomaly. Two minor anomaly, it is a 10% chance of major anomaly. And three minor anomalies, it is a 20% chance, almost 1 in 5, having major anomalies. Now the final part I am coming to, that is teratogenesis. Now remember, majority of the teratogenic development occurs between 3rd and 8th week of the week of gestation. এটা কেন বলছি? তার কারণ হচ্ছে এই টাইমটা যদি লক্ষ্য করো, this particular period of time, as a gynecologist, you'll have to be very cautious to give full protection to the growing fetus or growing embryo so that malformations and anomalies do not occur. This period is also called period of organogenesis. That means after 8th week, almost all organ systems are basically produced, and after 8 weeks, mostly it is the increased volume of the different organ systems. But the structural differentiation is already complete by 8th week. And why this period is significant? So we must, as a gynecologist, we must try to protect the fetus during this period of organogenesis. Okay. And the important rule of thumb is the early part of this organogenesis, the more early it is, the effect is of different environmental factors, all or none theory, which means either they will have maximum impact on development or there will be no impact. That's why while selecting the different drugs which can be prescribed to a pregnant mother, we must be very cautious. The drugs known to produce definite affection of the development should be abandoned. For example, if you give phenytoin sodium, that is anticonvulsant, they produce craniofacial malformations, cleft lip, cleft palate, and other defects in the face, etc. Like that. So, you must think of these drugs. These drugs are called drugs which can produce congenital malformation are called, ki bola hoy edarke? Very good. Teratogenic drugs. So you must remember the different common teratogenic drugs. Streptomycin is a teratogenic drug. Tetracycline is a teratogenic drug. But the penicillin derivatives mostly are not so, affecting the fetus and development. Can be prescribed safely. So there are 2-3 things that must be remembered. The environmental factor, one means if the mother takes certain drugs, so it becomes the environment of the fetus also. So that way it can affect. And if the mother is affected by certain disease processes, particularly viral diseases, and nowadays we all know that the torch group of infections definitely produces teratogenicity. Torch group means কি থাকে তার মধ্যে toxoplasmosis, rubella, cytomegalovirus, herpes simplex. And along with all these, though it is not very common nowadays, but still for theoretical purpose, your examination purpose, you should not forget another disease which was rampant in the early end of 18th century and early 19th century. That is syphilis. Now, other factors that are concerned with the development of the fetus. First and foremost is the genotype of the conceptus. We do not know the exact genotype of all people. So there may be certain defects in the genome. So that is it. That is 3rd week to 8th week. The first 2 weeks, there is a peculiarity. The first 2 weeks is they follow all or none phenomenon. That means in the first 2 weeks of genesis, if some drug, etc., or for example some virus, etc., enters, it usually produces either of the two. Either there will be no effect, or there will be so much so effect, there is abortion, etc., and further continuation of this development of the gamete doesn't occur. Follow? That is called all or none phenomenon. Then 3rd to 8th is the most dangerous time. We must be very cautious. So we will try to protect the environment of the fetus at 3rd to 8th week, when there is mainly embryogenesis or organogenesis. Now this defect develops. There are 3 ways. Actually, during development, certain enzymes and factors are required for the development of the cell line or population of different organ system. Now, in case of teratogenesis, there are 3 changes, basic, microscopically if you consider the microscopical biochemical level, it produces either the cell death or the cell damage, and also depletion of certain important enzyme systems of our body. So, more or less, this effect of teratogen depends on the duration of the exposure and how long it is given, or how long the teratogen is in contact with the fetal system. And there are manifestations of abnormal development. There are 4 particular things that you must mention. Number one, most severe form, it may lead to IUFD, intrauterine fetal death. Number two, so now then, this death, then IUGR, intrauterine growth restriction, previously called IUGR, but growth retardation. This term has been deleted. We now call it growth restriction. Then malformation, and there are certain functional disorders. Now last, I will be giving you certain common teratogens associated with malformation. Please do remember this. Already I have elaborated them, just a recapitulation. Regarding infectious agents, you have rubella, cytomegalovirus, herpes simplex virus, varicella virus, and toxoplasma and syphilis. Now regarding physical agents, X-rays and hyperthermia. Now I will mention little bit about the hyperthermia. X-ray, as you all know, we all know about the deleterious effects of X-rays, and usually first 2 trimester X-ray is almost totally avoided. Maybe later part of 3rd trimester you can have X-ray, but then of course if it is mandatory, you follow my point. So 3rd trimester later part you may have X-ray if it is very much mandatory. You can't avoid in that case, otherwise not. Then hyperthermia, I want to highlight a little bit. Hyperthermia means the body temperature is above the normal, isn't it? Now hyperthermia, how it affects we don't know, but we have seen this hyperthermia in the mother can affect the fetus, and in many cases there is sudden IUFD. মার অন্য কোনো প্রবলেম নেই, মা হয়তো ভুলেও গেছে, তার কোনো একটা কারণে she was hyperthermic, হাই টেম্পারেচার রান করেছিল 4 দিন 5 দিন 6 দিন ছিল, তারপরে ওষুধ খেয়ে হানাতানা অ্যান্টিবায়োটিক প্যারাসিটামল এটসেট্রা কমে গেছে আনতেন। কিন্তু এই যে হাইপারথার্মিক ফেজ ছিল তার জন্য কিন্তু ফিটাল ডেথ ইজ ভেরি কমন। সো এনি কন্ডিশন প্রডিউসিং হাইপারপাইরেক্সিয়া, ফর এক্সাম্পল ম্যালেরিয়া, ডেঙ্গু এটসেট্রা, এইগুলোতে যখনই প্রেগন্যান্সি থাকে আউটকাম drastically changed. So hyperthermia should be avoided in case of this pregnancy. And other teratogens, let us come to the chemical agents, common. Thalidomide, you know the thalidomide disaster? নাম শুনেছো thalidomide disaster? হ্যাঁ জানো? সেকেন্ড ওয়ার্ল্ড ওয়ারের সময় মোরলেস ওই টাইমটাতে there was a very effective painkiller, and structurally the component was called chemically thalidomide. Now it was extensively used at that point of time, and then it was found a lot of babies being developed who do not have their limbs, just like a dolphin. হাতের একটা wings আর পায়ের একটা wings. So it is also called phocomelia. Another technical term is called phocomelia, absence of limbs or phocomelia. So ultimately when it was proven that this is disastrous development of multiple cases of phocomelia and limb disorders, developmental limb disorders, then it was abandoned. Nowadays not given at all. But it is now confirmed. We know that this can produce these sort of changes. Similarly, other chemicals that you must know, aminopterin, already said, diethylene hydroquinone or peritone sodium, valproic acid, anticonvulsant, trimethadone, lithium, SSRIs, also opioids, amphetamine, warfarin, ACE inhibitors. ACE inhibitor is a very nice drug which is used for control of hypertension. But ACE inhibitor is contraindicated in pregnancy. You cannot give ACE inhibitor to control the blood pressure in pregnant mother. Then alcohol. Alcohol consumption definitely produces affection of the fetus. Organic mercury, lead, and of course, cigarette smoking is also a teratogen. And regarding hormones, which can produce teratogenic effects, androgenic drugs like norethistron, maternal diabetes, maternal obesity, and diethylstilbestrol. DES, diethylstilbestrol. কি হয় diethylstilbestrol দিলে? তাদের যে বাচ্চাগুলো হয় তাদের মধ্যে ফিমেল বাচ্চা যেগুলো হয় তাদের vaginal adenosis and sometimes early onset vaginal adenocarcinoma. Okay, so I conclude the point.